So you're in a job, maybe you love it, maybe you hate it, but you know that you could be doing better work. It might be in the same industry, it might be in a different industry, but you know you need out because your soul needs something a little bit better. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Wade Manricks, one of the founding members of Sheldon James, and he's going to talk us through that transition in his life. Hi guys, welcome back to Montreal's Elite Unleashed. As I said before, today we have the absolute pleasure of interviewing Wade Manricks here from Sheldon James. I'm your host, Logan Boyce. With me as always is Jonathan Ehrlich. Wade, thanks so much for making the time today. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cool. So first things first, walk us through how Sheldon James became Sheldon James.
So Sheldon James was, it's a company made up of four of us that started it. Two couples. We are husband and wife. All of us come from the luxury travel space. All of us worked in that space for, let's call it the better part of 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm.
And, we were working for a pretty large travel company, and just decided that as things were going, as things were progressing, we felt we were wanting more, just in terms of how we work, how we service the clients, everything about how the job was. We saw holes in it that we thought we could do better, which I think a lot of people probably
sure
have that feeling, whatever role they're doing,
100%
that they can do better. And it was born out of, I think, just desire and a want for that. And then an opportunity that presented itself to actually execute on that. And then a whole lot of, call it fear, call it guts, call it ambition, call it stupidity, just slapping on the bathing cap and diving in.
Nice. Very cool.
I love saying stupidity. You got to be just a little stupid to do it. It's a big risk.
Definitely. I think maybe stupid is too harsh, but I mean, it's perfectly describes, I think, the emotion. Like, this is either going to be amazing or we're going to be living on the streets in a month.
So you went from working for one of these large travel companies to starting your own thing. What kind of sparked that desire to do that? What you had mentioned there was a couple of things that you believed you could do better. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're dealing with the market we deal with it's super high end luxury private villa rentals, basically. Around the world.
So flex on us a little bit. What's the most expensive villa that you've rented out in the last, let's say, year? Per night. Let's say per night.
Instead of going per night, let's just go total sales. It's probably easier to do it that way. We've done some deals that are well above six figures for a week. Well above six figures.
That's awesome. That's so great. I love that.
Pushing 9.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just kidding.
That's awesome. Okay. So back to the actual question, which was, why do that transition? Like, what were the main sticking points that you're like, I believe we can do this better?
So, where we were and what we were doing was very well established. That they had a great system in place. They are very successful at what they do, and they do it a certain way. And I think they appeal to a very large audience and a very large market. There's a huge market for that. When we all started off at the company we were at, it was a small company, and we were catering specifically to a very niche and smaller market of the, I don't want to call it the uber rich, but let's say the uber rich, elite, high-end luxury traveler. And as the business grew, it became a little less relationship-based and more, I think, transactional. And that was something that we didn't like about our jobs, right? We built our careers, I think, on being relationship-driven and dealing with people and high touch and high personalization, and very niche. And I think, for many reasons, companies like to use the word scalability. And as you get bigger, I think you're always thinking, like, how can we scale this? How can we apply this to the whole thing and have it trickle down? And I just didn't think, or we just didn't think that the niche market that we are after is scalable. I think those are two contradictory terms in a way, that the very fact that it's niche means it's not for everyone. It is for a very specific and targeted group. And we just wanted to do more of that. We wanted to get back to that and being nimble, being quick on your feet, being able to adapt to change anything from how you operate on a normal transaction to what you'll do for any client on any given point, outside of, let's say, the boundaries of, here's your operating manual. Sort of be resourceful, be ambitious, comes to mind. That word comes to mind. Just find a way to get it done.
So it's actually interesting that you say niche. Everyone wants to niche down to like a specific section of the market, because if you niche down, then you can kind of corner that market and really own it. But what's funny is once you corner that market and you own it, it sounds like the company that you were working with had kind of figured that out. Then they said, okay, well now let's scale, like you were saying, scale up, but then they fall out of the niche. And then there are people who specialize in that niche who kind of feel like, okay, well, hold on, we just watered down this whole experience. So we lose that niche power and that niche corner of the market that we have. So you guys branched off to kind of say, okay, you know what, we're going to take that niche and we're going to expand on it.
Yeah, I guess it's a great way to put it. That was very much what we wanted to do. We wanted to get back to our roots, which was, my partners and I, we're all very personable people. We like talking to people. We like dealing with people less so than, logging on and doing something online per se. As much as that is the way of the future, and a big part of our business is online, I think where the meat is always in dealing with people. I mean, you're in sales, right? You guys, people buy from who they like.
100%.
They don't necessarily buy from what they like. They'll buy what they like from who they like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we really wanted to, that's where our strengths lie as individuals and as professionals, was in dealing with people directly and finding out what they like and being able to present it to them in a way that they would like it and purchase it, and then building that trust, right?
Of course.
I think with a market like that, you've got people that have 1 or 2 weeks of vacation a year sometimes because they're CEOs or, celebrities that can only travel in the off season, athletes or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a lot of free time all the time to travel. So you can't screw up that 1 or 2 weeks that they, want to travel and get away with their family or their friends or whatever. You have to nail it. And I think oftentimes that requires stepping outside of your comfort zone and regular procedures and regular avenues of doing things, and just doing things that sometimes a big company for a multitude of reasons cannot do.
You can absolutely tell that you're built for this business because of how you just described insanely wealthy people. So how you just described them is, man, they only have a couple of weeks vacation a year. I have to make it special and perfect for them. Whereas I feel like the layman's out there who would come into a position like yours would probably say, well, there's so much money, they can just go out and go on vacation another time. It's like, you don't understand what these people's schedules must be.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. You can tell how much care you're gonna take of these
Thank
people
you.
if that's the way you look at it. That's amazing. I needed to just kind of reiterate that because I was blown away by that. That was awesome.
That's huge. And I love the idea too of like the personal touch, like the, AI is not going to take that job away. AI
No way.
is not going to be able to, you're safe.
I think there's a lot of things, that need, like I said, a big portion of our business is online. A big component, of our business is definitely online. And I'm not in any way trying to diminish that. But the meat and potatoes of the whole thing is people dealing with people.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'm too old school and I'm, the world is changing too fast for me, you could say.
No,
but
man. Like
that's
when
how
you
it
call
is.
a number, how quickly do we mash the 0 button?
Yep.
I don't know about you guys, but I call something and I'm
Human.
just like, give me a human. Let me speak to somebody who's actually going to solve my issues.
Yeah.
Because the AI or the person on the other line is just going to feed me the same thing that I've heard 100 times, and it's like, I happen to have 2 brain cells to rub together, so I know I've already restarted my modem. You know what I mean? Just as a kind of a
for
crappy
sure. And
example.
we've all had that experience of like,
Of course,
I have heard though that like 90% of the time, just
It is
resetting
that.
the modem
I
is
know.
what they need to do.
is it plugged in, Logan? Is it plugged in?
Yes, forgot. Oh,
So little sidebar. I worked for a long time ago, like when I was in university, I worked for a company that did customer support for Brother, like Brother fax
of course,
machines
yes.
Oh, yeah.
printers and all that. This is years and years and years ago. And we were the call center. Montreal's a hub for a lot of those type of
Yeah,
places.
of course.
So this is, again, years ago, I was working for them doing, handling incoming calls from the US market. And I cannot tell you how many times you would have like a 45-minute conversation walking through all the troubleshooting steps with the person on the phone, only to get to the point where like, sorry, let me just ask you, is the machine plugged in? And they'd be like, well, no, it's plugged into the back. Like, yeah, but is it plugged into the wall? Oh no, I have to plug it into the wall.
Oh my God, no, stop
Well,
it.
what did you plug in then? Well, my phone cable. I'm like, but So
God.
there's no power. That's why the lights are coming. Now, you could say that,
Oh, it's working now.
yeah, you could say that, fine, maybe I should have asked that first, but
Yeah.
99% of the population understands that no matter what you do, you need power to work an electronic device.
I thought this was different.
Maybe if I asked that
Turns
question right off the
out.
bat, I could have saved myself.
Spoiler alert.
Anyway.
So a little bit back to your journey. What do you think now? Because you've been established now. Sheldon James has been around for how long now?
We're just over 3 years, coming up on 3.25, I'd say, a little more than that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what do you think now? Especially now, I would consider you like pretty established, I would say.
I hope so. I think so.
What would you say is like the number one difference between your guys' company versus the other kind of larger vacation rentals companies like, X and Y? I can't say them obviously, but
no, I mean, I think I touched on it before a little bit, in saying that the biggest differences are our ability to be nimble, to react, to adjust, to, customize things as needed, when needed.
Can you give like some examples of that though?
Sure. I mean, I guess operationally, anything from, how people pay for things in installments, being able to be like, usually it's 2 installments. If it's really not going to work for you, we can do it in 3. We can do it in 4. If you're spending $600,000 on a trip, these people have that kind of money, but they don't necessarily want to drop 600 in one shot. They might want to be like, can I give you 200 now, 200 a month, like little things like that. You know what I mean? That's the most obvious example that comes into play. Taking calls at 2 a.m, whatever time of day or night that the client calls, answering questions and accomplishing things like, they don't have the wine I want here. Can you get me the wine? And just finding a way to get the wine they want, and wherever they are at whatever time they need it. I think working under the constraints of a beer company sometimes is a lot harder to do that.
For
There's
sure.
so much red tape and so many layers to cut through, and
Oh,
things you got to do procedurally to get to that point. Whereas we have the luxury of being able to be like, yeah, we can do that.
I imagine your client retention is probably 10x the big companies. That's based on what you're telling me. I was like, man, if I went and had a complete polar opposite experience with one of these larger corporations, and then I went and had an experience like what you guys give, there's no way I would ever go back to somebody larger that wouldn't be able to cater to even a small request, even if it's not a huge thing. Like, I need this specific wine you can only find in the south of France or whatever. Even if it's just a little thing like, hey, my kid wants to play basketball, but the hoop's broken, and you send a guy to go fix the hoop or send a brand new hoop in or something like that. Like, I would never, ever go back to a place that wasn't able to, build that relationship with me. So I imagine the retention's really high. Let's talk on that.
Definitely. I mean, that is a big portion of our business, is working with people that know us and trust us and have worked with us. And, hopefully we've built up enough of that trust that they keep coming back. And again, it's not to say that a lot of these bigger companies don't do those things. I just think it's a lot harder for them to do those things.
Sure.
Just based on size. And as I said before, the bigger you get, I think the more rules you need to put in place. That's just good business, right? So it's also a question of, we are not a huge company. Obviously would like to get bigger and would like to continue growing, but not without giving up that nimbleness. Not at the expense, of giving up that nimbleness, because I think that's part of the charm and the strength that allows us to succeed.
And this is all based around, obviously, like the luxury market. And one of the craziest things in like anything to do with luxury, I find like chartering a jet, right? When you look at chartering a jet, it's super expensive. But then you break down what first class would cost by X amount of people. And you're like, well, hold on, wait a minute. It's actually cheaper to charter a jet if you have more people than if you were to go first class. So does that work the same way for what you do? Could a bunch of people get together and like kind of, not celebrities, just regular people?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not to contradict you at all, but having had some experience in the private jet space as well, I think that's the thought that most people have, is like, if we just get 15 of our friends and charter a jet, we can do it. It's not quite that simple, only because keep in mind when you're buying
Can
a
you
first
tell
class
I've never done it?
only because
I looked into it once and got scared.
Yet.
if you're booking 15 first class tickets, it's going to cost you X. But the reason it can cost you X is also because they're amortizing that cost over 300 passengers on an aircraft, and the dude sitting in the back by the bathroom or by the engine is helping you pay for your first class
Yeah.
seat. When you're hiring a private jet, you don't have that luxury. You're paying for the jet, you're paying for the fuel, you're paying for the captain's time, you're paying for everything goes. So it's not quite it is definitely not as crazy, I think, as people think it is, depending where you're flying, obviously.
Yeah.
As people think it is. It is within reach if you make a decent living for most people, especially if you're in a position to split it with a bunch of your buddies. Like that, I think you'd be surprised at how attainable that is. But from a villa perspective, definitely, I think if you're traveling in groups, there's no question. You don't have to be a bazillionaire to be able to rent a villa. I think the beauty of doing a villa stay is traveling with other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Going with a group, whether it's 2 families, 3 families, 5 families, whether it's 6 buddies, 10 buddies, whether it's just groups of friends, being able to have your own space with all the facilities, your own pool, your own, you can cook for yourselves, or we can get you a chef, you can get a butler, you can get a bartender, whatever you want, but not having to be like herded like cattle at a resort through the, oh, this pool and that buffet and that this. No, man, do it your way. Let us set it up to be your way, how you want it. And that is very much attainable for the average working man. And there's not all the villas in the world are 50, 60, 70,000 a night. There are villas that are $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a night, which still sounds like a lot of money. $35,000 for a week on a $5,000 a night vacation.
But if you're 10 people,
Yeah.
And you're comparing that with prices of, I can't say it, but it's a club and it rhymes with Fed. It's pretty attainable. I'm with you. Fun sidebar. What's your favorite thing that's offered at any of your villas? Like an amenity that's just wow, like the cream of the crop.
So for me, this is my, you're asking my personal, the best experience I've ever had at a villa is there's a private beach butler service that we offer, or some of the villas we work with offer, where they'll go to any beach. Let's say you're at an island that has 20 beaches on it.
Right.
They'll take you to whatever beach you want to go to, and they'll set up like a marquee tent. They'll set up a table, chairs, full, like a dining table basically on the beach under a tent, like not just like a teepee, like an actual nice tent.
Yeah.
They'll set up beach chairs, umbrellas, coolers with food and drink. They'll bring a barbecue. They'll bring butlers, bartenders, and chef, and you'll have like your own private section it's like having a private beach on a big private beach.
That's so awesome.
We did it once years ago in Anguilla, and it was there were just other people on the beach, just happened to be on the beach, like, who the hell are these clowns?
That's awesome.
How do we get in on that? That was just a super cool thing to take the home experience onto the beach and get a drink, get food, we had a elaborate meal, and it was fantastic.
That's awesome.
That's probably my favorite.
What's an underrated spot right now?
Underrated. I recently came back from the Dominican Republic. I think a lot of people sell the DR short for what it is.
Okay.
I hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, it's DR.
Well, listen, coming from, we're Montrealers, right? It's a very easy place for us to get to.
Yeah.
Most places in the Caribbean anyways are not easy for us to get to direct from Montreal. Dominican, you can. But I think people lump it in like the way people think of Mexico. It's dangerous. It's this, like really the places where these villas are in those countries should not be lumped in with the stigma that comes, I think, sometimes with some of those countries. Dominican has exceptional properties, presenting exceptional value. Stuff I've seen there supremely impressed me. And I've seen,
I've really enjoyed the food the times that I've been there too.
Yeah, the food's pretty good. I mean, it's hit or miss sometimes. Dominican food, I think, in general is kind of bland, like the local food. But
yeah,
from a service standpoint, it's a very established service industry there.
Mm-hmm.
So they have good chefs. They have good cooks. You don't have to eat Dominican food. They can cook whatever. I mean, they're a chef.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think
you're talking about a very different Dominican experience too. Like this is the villa experience where you have like probably a private chef who's able to,
No, I'm talking about it through my lens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are obviously 1,000,001 all-inclusive resorts in Dominican and
Of
like
course,
anywhere, but that I don't want to speak to those experiences because they could be very different. But certainly, you asked me, underrated. I definitely put Dominican high in there. I put places like
Well, just the setting of Dominican too. Like even Cuba, like the beaches are beautiful.
Yeah.
So that like lighter sand experience. And yeah.
I know the last time I went to the DR, my wife made sure that we were on one of the sides. You would know this more than I would, but it was the Caribbean Sea side, I think.
Punta Cana. You're in Punta Cana.
Yeah, it was on that side, but I think it was closer to La Romana, but it was on that side of the island.
Well, because so La Romana is on the south. That's where Casa de Campo is. That's everybody, a lot of people know Casa de Campo. It's a huge resort community in Dominican.
Claims a lot of people know it. I've never heard of it.
If you're a golfer, especially, you'll know Casa de
gotcha.
Campo, right? Casa de Campo is some of the best golf in the Caribbean.
I
am not either.
I'm supposed to be a golfer.
I am not at all. So, but yeah, that's on the south side. So the water isn't as blue. There are sections of it, but Punta Cana is more on the, I guess that'd be the east towards the north side. And that's a little more blue, blue turquoise,
Yeah,
white sand.
that's what we like.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff there.
Definitely.
So I couldn't help but notice that you did say that your company's been around for like 3.25 years or something. That puts you square in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are probably wrestling with this idea of, maybe they like their job, maybe they don't. Maybe they think they can do it a little bit better, just like the thoughts that you had. So walk me through kind of how you wrestled the fear with starting this whole thing.
So I'll go back to that word I used earlier, stupidity, John's favorite word.
A little bit of craziness, a little bit crazy stupid.
Yeah,
Crazy
it was.
stupid love.
I think we all still remember March 13th here in Montreal was the day that everything shut down, and it was like, okay, we're gonna give this 2 weeks and then see what happens in 2 weeks. I think that was the message.
I remember
with schools and everything. We'll be back in 2 weeks.
Yep, I remember.
A year and a half later.
Just be strong for 2 weeks. 2 years, 2 years later.
Wade's there. Let's start a business. Travel.
Funny.
If they shut down all the aircraft, you can't stay at hotels. Let's start a travel company.
I've got a brilliant idea.
Hence stupidity.
But it worked out. That's amazing.
Listen,
but obviously there must have been a ton of fear going on.
Yeah, there was a lot of, it was very much a discussion of like, can we do this? Is this the best time to do this? And the honest answer is, man, we didn't know. We really didn't know. We knew what our skills were and what our strengths were and what we knew we could do. We had a pretty good idea at how we could do it and what would be involved in doing that. We just didn't know what the reaction would be, from people in the world, given that the world was, to your point, every island or destination is closing their borders.
Mm-hmm.
Flights are being canceled, this, that, and the other. So a lot of that played into it in terms of, okay, so we have our side of it on lockdown perfectly. Terrible word, by the way. I just realized in the context of what we're talking about. We had our side of the equation
Figured
ready
out.
to rock and
Locked
roll.
in.
Locked in.
There you go.
Ready to rock and roll. Still not
Still
good.
not great.
Still not great.
Still not great.
Oh yeah,
We
wow.
were ready to rock and roll with our side of
There
things.
you go.
We just weren't sure if people were ready to listen. There's a good way to put it. But I think in catering to the top end and the high end traveler, folks with that kind of disposable income, I think, can operate in ways that maybe most of us can't.
Yeah.
So there was a little more flexibility, or if not even flexibility, just the ability to be like, I'm going to go to work in Malibu for the next 6 months until things open up. I live in New York, but I'm just going to fly to Malibu and rent a place for 6 months.
Yep.
Or I'm going to go to Turks and Caicos before they close the borders, and I'll just live in Turks and Caicos until the borders are open, and I can come home, or whatever the case may be.
It's a good plan.
Yeah, if you can do it.
Yeah.
So I think for us, we knew there would be there would be people who could still do what we were offering, and would still appreciate that service. And we decided that it was worth the risk. It was worth jumping in and doing it. And I will say that I think we got a little bit of luck in there as well. And not to downplay our relationships and our skill set, but we did okay. We got through that pretty successfully, and then once those floodgates opened again, right, we just wanted to be primed and ready to receive it all and then take it to the next level.
Was it pretty much like not smooth sailing, but like it was like, okay, things are picking up and it's going well? Or was there like an all is lost moment and you're like, we have to do this to survive, and then you made it out?
Knock on wood, so far we haven't had that moment yet. It was a very smooth, kind of steady, gradual growth and success. to that point, and you know, when you start your business, you realize how much goes into actually running a business that you had no clue about.
Oh yeah.
When you worked for the man.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of moments still are many moments where like, oh geez, we got to do that. And I think, you know, that there were more moments like, oh, how are we going to do that? That came up.
Because you're four people, you were
partners,
saying?
yeah, 4 partners.
And now, obviously, like a company has a structure of how everything works. You guys just all knew where you landed, like the chips hit the table, and everyone's like, I fit here. Or you had to.
Great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think actually we were very fortunate to be that the 4 of us had skills that very much complement what we were trying to do. You know, James and I are salespeople at heart. We're the client-facing people that handle the guests and do all that. My wife Chelsea had huge relationships with the travel agent community because she did business development at our previous company, and she's done it all in this industry. Right? In 20-something years, she's done it all. So she knows the business inside out, and so she was able to pick up some of the everything. Even finance was a big part of her role in previous years. So she was able to handle the bookkeeping and the finance side of things.
This guy's winning so many
up.
husband points right now. It's crazy.
She will be watching this.
And James's wife Angela, as I said, was a product manager, and so you know, her expertise were invaluable in setting up how we do
of course,
things, right?
yeah.
The systems, the CRM, the database, you know, everything. So the 4 of us kind of had different skills and strengths, and for the business we were doing, it was almost I don't think we could have asked for a better combination. It helped that we were husband and wife too, made it a little simpler.
Yeah.
But that's so I guess to your point, yeah, the chips kind of did fall where they lie, but we got lucky that the 4 of us each had those chips in our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Your partner, were you friends with him beforehand as well?
Can't stand James.
Sorry?
Never liked him.
Screw that guy.
No, that's, you know, that's a good question too. Actually, it's a very it's a fantastic opportunity. I think we had and have still to work with people that you're very good friends with. So James and Angela, that's his wife, and Chelsea and myself, we've been friends for years, working at where we worked previously together for years and years, and had been traveling, taking trips together, anyways. Like on
That's
a social
so
level.
awesome.
Like we were just good friends. And of course, you know, when you all work at the same place, what do you do when you hang with your buddies from work? You talk about work.
Yeah,
Yep.
100%.
Like, whether you want to or not. We used to have to, you know, like I'm sure like most people, you get to a point sometimes where if you're traveling in big groups and other people that don't work with you guys are like, can you guys
Oh
stop
my God.
talking about
Does that sound familiar, dude?
It's just, I think it's human nature, right? So
Of course. Well,
we
you're
were-
passionate about it.
Yeah.
So you're going to talk about stuff you're passionate about, of course.
So I think a lot of the ideas were born in just like casual conversations, some drunken, some not, of what you think we could do better and what we'd love to do. Oh, man, imagine we could do this. So we were very close beforehand on a personal level, outside of our professional lives. And it just seemed like a very good fit. I mean, I have a lot of friends from those days that I'm still very close with to this day. Some still work there. Some are working at other competitors in the industry. But I think with James and Angela and Chelsea and myself, the match in the personalities and the approach to things, like we're also very different in a lot of ways. Like I'm more, you know, kind of fearless. Let's just do it. We'll figure it out. You know, and I need the James, Chelsea, and Angela to be like, whoa. We're not going to spend $500,000 on this. That's a dumb idea. Okay, well, why? And then like, you know, or sometimes, you know, they're more prudent. And I'm like, well, why are we being prudent here? We should be more bashful and aggressive and push. So I think that push and pull between our personalities and our approach to things has been invaluable to us success. Because I'll be the first to admit, if it was just me running the show, man, I would have driven this truck right off the cliff at 100 miles an hour on day one, just see where it lands. And I think I needed someone to be like, no, I'm pulling the handbrake here, or we're going to go left here.
But those people that are pulling the handbrake and saying go left here, they need someone to drive the truck.
Exactly.
And get close enough to the edge.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's exactly that. It's a combination of all of us. And, you know, there are times where maybe we wouldn't have been able to do some of the things we did because if we were too conservative, just like we wouldn't be able to do things because we were overstepping our boundaries on things. So very much fortunate that the 4 of us, I think, complement each other well on a personality and approach level, for lack of a better way to put it.
So before we wrap up, if you were to communicate to somebody right now who's working at a job that they believe they could they're itching to do something else, that it might be in the same industry, but they know they could be doing better work. What would be some tips you would want to give them to fight that fear and to find out, what they could be doing better? What would be your kind of guidance to a person like that?
I mean, again, I don't mean this to sound self-serving or arrogant in any way, shape, or form, but I think you have to be supremely confident in your ability to do the things that you want to do or the things that you're complaining about. That's number one. Stupidity again comes to mind. There's a little bit of stupidity, but you have to be confident that if I'm going to do this, I know I can do this.
Gotcha.
Right? Whatever this is.
Yep.
I think you also have to come to terms with the fact that there's absolutely no sense with me sitting here complaining about how, if I'm miserable, why am I miserable and all this. Too many people, I think, when they're not happy at what they're doing, they spend years just complaining about it and not just being unhappy and just accepting it. And there is a sort of come to Jesus moment, I think, at a certain point where you're like, why am I accepting this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why don't I change it? Like, instead of just sitting here and complaining about it all the time, why don't I change it? And then realizing that and then actually making the change. That's the hard part. Taking that step to be like, okay, so now I understand what I hate about it and what's driving me crazy, but now I'm actually going to just change it. And that's the big, like, okay, wow. And then you start laying out all the, okay, what does that change mean actually in my life, in my everything from, stupid basic things like expenditures, my personal budget, my responsibilities, everything. So the advice I'd give is, be confident in that you can do whatever it is you think you want to do. Go ahead, John.
Well, no, one of the things that you're saying here that's so beautiful is you laid out there's a lot of things to do. And what you said about yourself is really cool too, because you're very confident in yourself, very comfortable to go out and sell a product, but you need a product to sell. So you had people who could refine and build a product for you. So it's like looking at it one step at a time and doing those steps. So it's not taking the whole project on, because I think a lot of people get analysis paralysis. They get scared. There's so much to do. I can't do it. I'll just keep working this job I hate.
Yeah. Which, and listen, there's comfort in that too, right? Like, different people and different people's tolerance for risk, I think is different. Everyone has a different tolerance for that and a willingness to sort of slap on that bathing cap and just dive right in. And I think the advantage we had was not just the confidence but like we knew our stuff. Like, I know this industry, right? My partners know this industry. We were coming from a position of strength, admittedly, but so the biggest challenge for us was actually the fear of stepping over the edge, was actually like realizing, okay, we're going to do this. That was the biggest sort of hurdle to overcome.
And that's why you guys did it drunk.
Yeah.
Let's start a business, man.
I feel like that was really the big, I know there was a lot of back and forth internally as individuals and collectively is, can we do this? Can we take this? Can we actually take this step through that door? I think we were, again, we had the luxury of being less concerned with, we know how to do it once we're through the door, because we were so confident in our knowledge and our skills and our relationships and all that.
Awesome. Wade, thank you so much for making the time today again.
Appreciate it, guys.
This has been Montreal's Elite Unleashed with Wade Manricks and Sheldon James. How do we find Sheldon James if we want to pool together all of our mates and book a trip, or for those of you with high net worths that can spend $600,000 on a, no, it doesn't have to be 600. We went over this. It doesn't have to be 600, but whether you're pooling together or taking the family away, where do they find you?
First of all, I won't get out of the bed for less than 500. So I'm just kidding. No, please, by all means, www.sheldonjamesvillas.com is our website. It is a large sample of some of the product we offer. It's not everything. So if there are regions or places you want to go to that you don't see on there, hit us up. The contact us is on there. We will get back to you. And we have those relationships almost anywhere in the world to be able to service, even if it's not on our website. Chances are I've worked with someone there or have someone there that I trust, because I won't. And if I don't, if we don't, rather, we won't. We'll just say we can't help you there. Like, I'm not going to, just to get a deal, I'm not going to put someone somewhere that I don't have a trusted network that I know I can support that experience with. Otherwise, I'm shooting myself in the foot.
Absolutely. Well, thanks so much for taking the time again.
Thanks,
the link
guys.
will be in the show notes. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.